right, folks, welcome back. How do you classify your actions when it comes to an uncomfortable disagreement with someone? Do you take it all in and then calmly address it? Or are you impulsive and just jump right in there? In this segment, Amy connected with a mental toughness expert who talks about why you should respond versus react in a challenging situation. This is a very interesting conversation, and we want to share it with you again.
Sometimes in the heat of the moment, human reaction is to respond quickly to the situation. And then after the dust settles, you may end up regretting that decision. Our great friend, mental toughness expert, author, and former United States Marine Eric Rittmeyer is here to talk about how we can learn to respond versus react. Thank you for coming in today.
Amy, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me back.
What is the difference between reacting and responding?
Yeah, most people hear that and it sounds like the same thing, right? So here's the difference between the two. We're emotional creatures. We're hardwired to feel first and think later. Most of us go through life reacting to situations. It's very emotion-based. Something happens, we react. Responding is when we're able to process information logically and then have a more appropriate response to the situation. As opposed to flying off the handle, doing something we're going to regret, we learn to respond. We process the information and then we say, you know what, I should probably sit on this for a second and then have a proper response to the situation.
What about those uncomfortable situations or maybe scenarios that aren't that familiar to us? Is there a way that you can sort of rehearse for when that comes to play?
That's actually a awesome way you word it, and yes, you can, most certainly. It's kind of like being on a diet, right? So if you're going to a party, you know there's tons of food there, you eat before you go. You get your head of lettuce, you drink your water, you go there. You don't eat as much when you're there. Same thing when you get put in these situations where you know you're going to be dealing with people. The holidays are coming up. We get put in these situations with the cousin Eddies who come into town to try to stoke you. Yes. You have to mentally prepare for these things so you can go through the scenarios and say to yourself, okay, if this happens, this is how I'm going to respond. That way when somebody says something, you don't automatically fly off the handle.
Something that with my work, I've learned to be a very active listener, and that's not something that is natural for a lot of people. Even myself, you have to really learn how to listen and stay in the moment. How can being a listener help in these kinds of situations where you maybe are going to react or respond? Yeah,
in TV world, you all are so good at that. And here's the issue. It takes a ton of practice. Here's why. We're hardwired to, when we're listening to somebody, when they're talking, we're only listening long enough to formulate our response. So we're listening with the intent to reply, as opposed to listening with the intent to understand. If we're truly trying to hear what someone's saying, we're processing that information. We don't wait for this microsecond break in the conversation to jump back with the reply. We listen truly with the intent to understand. When we do that, the other person feels like they're being heard. In hostile situations, it works really well, because ultimately all that person wants, just make me feel like you're listening to me. Don't have to agree, make me feel like you're listening to me. Most people in normal communication, we're only listening long enough to formulate that response. Everything else is Charlie Brown talk.
Why did you decide to bring this to raise awareness about it, the reacting versus responding? What in your work made you realize that this needed to be more of a conversation?
It's the emotional piece, Amy. So emotion and logic are inversely related. Emotion goes up, logic goes down. Logic goes up, emotion goes down. When you get so overcome in emotion that you can't think logically, I call this emotional intoxication. You're just incapable of logical thought processes. My obsession with this began once I recognized that we're all human. We all go through this. We all experience this. We all get fueled. We all say things and do things we regret. Why not try to convey the message to people to say, hey, you have the ability to control these things. You just have to be educated on it. Our school system doesn't teach us this. We're taught to shut off the emotion, ignore it, suppress it, deny it. These are all things that are impossible, as opposed to learning to recognize it, then control it.
How can we find that balance? It's not reacting and responding.
It all starts with knowing the triggers, knowing when something's been said, knowing when something's been done. As soon as that happens, if we can recognize internally, if we're self-aware enough to be like, okay, what just happened triggered me emotionally? What I'm getting ready to say and do, I have to be very careful of, because I'm probably going to act in a way that's not normal. So once you know you're in an emotional state of mind, instead of trying to ignore it, which you can too, you can just learn to now control it and use it in a positive manner to build deeper relationships, to not get into a fist fight when you're stopped at a stoplight because somebody's tailgating you. Not difficult stuff, but we get no training on it.
You said that key phrase too, that self-awareness, because sometimes it's just a matter of stepping back and almost having an out-of-body experience and just seeing what you do and maybe issues that come up when you react versus respond.
This is Emotional Intelligence 101. It's self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skill. The awareness piece is so critical, especially in a society where I think most people have no clue. They're not aware at all. They say and do things that they don't understand, might upset other people, might offend other people, might trigger other people. And then the regulation piece is once you're aware, then you have to regulate. It's difficult to do. Anyone can learn. That's the great thing about emotional intelligence. It's not like IQ. You're born smart or not smart. I'm not a smart person. I wasn't born that way. But I can learn how to better communicate with people. We can all learn these skills that translate really well into at-home relationships, also at work relationships.
You mentioned too that, you know, like culturally in schools we're told to suppress emotion. We're taught all of these different things. You can unteach yourself in a way and you can learn to do it in an effective way.
You sure can, especially as men, as boys. This is something that's a major broken system. Boys are taught to not express how they feel. We need to give them an emotional vocabulary, this feelings vocabulary, to help them understand 100% of your feelings are okay. For you, for me, for everyone, regardless of age. Every emotion's okay. It's how we respond to them that's important. So instead of trying to teach people something that's impossible to do, which is to suppress, let's teach them to learn and then express it accordingly so they don't put themselves into bad situations.
This all is mental toughness. I can see why you're an expert in it. Thank you so much for coming in today, Eric. This is really important information that we can take today and we can apply it as the days go on.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful information.
Appreciate it.
For more information, just visit our show website by early this afternoon. Check out virginiathismorning.com and stay with us. We'll be right back.